think you may have accidentally proved this for me. We find it actually very hard to pin down precisely what it is that we are supposed to be proud of, except possibly Range Rovers. Thank you, James. Quick text here from Patrick. Says, James, never go to the phones early again. I completely disagree. It's 11:30. Lottie Morley has your headlines. 11:34 is the time. We haven't done this for a while, but I think just let me get my ducks in a row.
Woke Watch.
The Sun says Rishi Sunak must bite the bullet and derail woke HS2. Sorry, what? Pardon? How can a railway line be woke? What would be the signs of? So you've got two railway lines, right, running alongside each other. One of them is woke and one of them is not. How do you tell the difference between a woke railway line and a non-woke railway line? Well, the Sun knows, and one day, no doubt, they'll share it with us. So there it is. Now, in a world where woke has become such a meaningless pejorative that you can apply it to anything you don't like, HS2 is woke.
Woke Watch.
Quite a lot of Tories have started doing their own sad versions of Woke Watch, but the other way round. So they're pointing out things that they think you should be getting angry about. I might start demanding royalties or something on that, but the idea that a train can be woke is, well, one for the... It makes you proud to be British, doesn't it? Sarah's in Fulham. What does it mean, pride in nationhood, Sarah?
Right. So basically, I have this particular position where I am British,
Yes.
Italian, and Egyptian.
Fantastic.
And I can actually vote in all three. And I make a huge distinction between being proud of a nation and being proud of its politics.
Yes.
Because politics change every 20 years.
Absolutely.
If you think about
every
it.
4 years.
Yeah, but more or less the trends, put it
Yes.
that way. And especially with
Yeah.
Egypt, it couldn't change for a long time,
Well, no,
put it
this
that
is
way.
true. Fair enough.
But, and that's what I feel proud of. So I became British so I could actually vote and get back the country to where it was in 2012 when I first arrived. And that's what I mean. I think that you can be proud of a nation with taking away the fact that the politics don't suit you. Because
Well, I mean,
if that's the case, you'll never be proud.
I know, but I am going to try to pin you down on what you're actually proud of, because quite a few people actually, unsurprising given the programme that they're listening to, perhaps, saying I find it very hard to be proud of a country that has taken away my own freedom of movement, for example.
I agree with you. However, I'll put it this way. I think maybe because you were born in Britain or you grew up in Britain, if that makes sense. For me, I came here about 10, 11 years ago. The biggest difference is the opportunities that I got. So I lived in a lot of places, including Egypt, and a lot of places in Europe, including France,
Right.
Switzerland. And here I found opportunities that I didn't find anywhere else.
Did
It
you?
might be just London,
That's
but...
interesting. I think it probably is
Certain
just London.
things.
But what sorts of things do you mean, if you don't mind
So,
me
for
asking?
instance, I work in construction. I'm a woman. In Italy or in Egypt, I would never find a job
No?
in construction. Whereas here, nobody bats an eye.
I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact
yeah.
I didn't know that, but I'm proud of the fact that this is a country where we seem to have gone further down the road towards equality in this field than other countries have.
Yeah, I'm proud, and this might sound silly because I actually don't agree necessarily with the veil, but the fact that you can go to a supermarket or a bank and a client-facing person will be wearing a veil is something you'll never find in France or in Italy.
Well, it's against the law,
And
I
I'm
think, now
proud
in
they
France.
have. Yeah, I'm proud that they have the choice to do that if they want to.
And yet the website that I forgot, I know Kirsty and Luton told us about, would argue that being proud of being British would involve you objecting to people wearing face veils in customer-facing roles
But they're
or
proud
headscarves.
of the politics. They're not proud of the country.
No. What are they proud
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Because I think that's not being British. Being British is listening to TMS in summer and maybe not necessarily understanding cricket, but you're still British.
Well, yeah,
I'm
and
getting
eating
there. I swear to God, it's been 5 years.
but I mean, I get it with you. You're drawing quite clear comparisons with your own lived experience. For the rest of us who haven't really got any experience of living anywhere else in the world and now have less likelihood of living anywhere else in the world as a consequence of the politics of the people who claim that they're patriotic but have actually robbed everyone of basic freedoms that we once took for granted. It's a harder thing to do. But yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you... Sorry, go on.
We need to fight to vote
Yes.
because that's the only ways we can change things. And that's, like my proudest moment of being Egyptian was when I actually could vote in a democratic election,
And that
even
shows,
if I didn't like the result.
no, and that shows what we take for granted, doesn't it, in Western democracies without even realising it. And that probably is something to be proud of, the suffrage. The vote. Thank you, Sarah. That was incredibly helpful for me. 11:39 is the time. Hamish says, I'm proud to be British. Historically, the kinder transport. I see the problem with that. I mean, it was a wonderful thing. Of course it was. But it wasn't quite as wonderful as most of us think. It wasn't a government scheme. All of the children on the kinder transport had to have sponsors here already who would vouch that they would cover the cost, they would pay for it. It was, I suppose, being proud of some of our fellow citizens, but not being proud of the country itself. Nat's in Exeter. Nat, what would you like to say?
Oh, morning, James.
Hello, Nat.
Wow, the last lady, I thought was really interesting what she said, because it's superficial for me that you can go into a bank and see somebody wearing a veil.
Yes.
There is a real sort of deep structural racism going on in this country. And the reason I say that as a black woman is having grown up here, I look at my contemporaries, my opportunities haven't been as rich as theirs. And I put that down to skin colour.
Yes.
I really do. But I grew up in a little town called Redditch, so I know you're from that neck of the woods as
From
well.
Kiddie, yeah, I know. Redditch well.
And actually, my mum, she was a magistrate in Kidderminster, so I know about Kiddie.
I never appeared in Kidderminster Magistrates Court, I'm afraid.
That's good.
Maybe on my next tour.
But it was a lovely place to grow up in a lot of respects.
Yes.
And, we were on the doorstep of Stratford-upon-Avon, so there were a lot of our school trips were, Shakespeare related, and it's a beautiful part of the country. But I really know that as the only black children in our school, me and my brother had to really, fight to get even further than the next person.
Yeah.
And what I was saying to a researcher was, I'm conflicted because on the other hand, I absolutely want to love being British. I go abroad and I come back to England and I'm delighted when the plane lands because I can then get a nice cup of tea and, watch some telly that you can't get abroad. And that's
Yes.
saying a lot because I've gone to some lovely countries. So it's a real conflict. I'm ashamed of people like, our current establishment
Yes.
in Home Secretary.
Yes.
I think if you are a descendant of immigrants, you have a responsibility to help those who are coming after you. So, I think there's things we're getting really wrong, but
there are things that we have got right. I suppose.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe pride
absolutely.
is just a silly word in this context. So what we're really talking about is gratitude and affinity. I'm grateful that I live in a place where X happens because there are places where it doesn't. And here's something I really like that I know I could probably find the same thing somewhere else, but I really like it and it's here. Therefore, I like it here. But it's not pride. Pride, I don't know what is pride really. I mean, it's supposed to be a bad thing, isn't it? Isn't it one of the 7 deadly sins? Pride.
Exactly. And I think we have to look at what is the history of the UK. It's based on immigration.
Yes.
And it's very rich and beautiful. And I'd be proud if we could celebrate and commemorate that more.
As opposed now to it often feels heading in the opposite direction.
Well, exactly.
To adding to the criticism, and of course, people who think, as a first caller alluded to, people who think that because you're black, you're somehow not British, which is the most disgusting articulation of racism, and sadly is a lot more mainstream now than it was 20 years ago. We've gone backwards. We've gone back to the 70s. Nat, thank you. I should stress that the research that's prompted this conversation, albeit that we're conducting the conversation in a way that doesn't confine it to black Britons, was undertaken by the University of Cambridge, the Voice newspaper, and a consultancy called iCubed. And it looks specifically at the concept of pride in Britishness among black Britons. And the answers are going to be different, aren't they? For fairly obvious reasons that I think our callers have brilliantly articulated. Samaila is in Nelson in Lancashire. Samaila, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome.
I was speaking to a researcher and I was saying to her that some nations do have quite a sense of pride, and it's usually places like Pakistan and India that have gained their independence and they have a day that they celebrate, and they have more of a sense of being proud of what their ancestors have achieved and where they've got to. I myself am sorry.
Well, I don't really. I mean, loads of people here are proud of Shakespeare or proud of Isambard Kingdom,
yes.
Brunel. But is it pride? Is it pride?
I think in those countries it is. I myself spent a lot of my formative years there, so I spent my teenage years there.
Right.
And as young people do, I would sometimes get picked on as the person that came from Britain, that ruled Pakistan.
Yes.
And I would be very proud, and I'd say, yes, I'm very proud. With my passport, I can travel anywhere in the world, and we have the NHS, and it looks after all the poorly people, and you have to pay here, and our education system is brilliant, and I get free milk at school, and I'd have all these points that made me really proud of being British. But as I've grown older and wiser, I feel that Britain's kind of lost all those things that we used to be proud of, that when we were younger. If you have money, you can get your private healthcare here. You can do the same in Pakistan. If you have money, you can get to a better school in Britain as you can in Pakistan. We've lost the ability of a free movement, as you mentioned before.
Yeah,
so
our passports have become
less
valuable, less powerful, so less reason to be proud of that passport than there was in 2015.
Yeah, and I myself feel that my granddad, when he came here in the early 60s, had really powerful and large dreams for his children, and he moved from his own country because he thought this was a better place. One of the points that stuck out from the conversations that you've had with the people is social justice. So politicians in those countries would get away with anything, and now here in Britain it's the same situation.
It does feel, I mean, you paint a picture of a country in reverse gear, and all the things that people like you and I would once have been proud of are being eroded. But I don't know what other people on that Facebook page Kirsty mentioned are proud of. What are they proud of? They just seem to be proud of the bile and vitriol that they direct at others, as you allude to, whether it's immigrants or refugees. I wonder if you can be proud of anything in your own country except the way it looks after the most vulnerable. Because then you can bring the NHS into it as well. But I'm proud to be British because this is a country where nobody goes hungry, where nobody sleeps in doorways. You can't say that, but that would make sense, wouldn't it? As pride, I'm proud to be British because this is a country where we look after the people who need looking after. Instead, this is a country where 30p Leenock is Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party with his performative contempt for people who need help. It's quite bizarre, actually. It's gone in all sorts of different directions, this conversation. Thank you, Sumaila. It's now 11:46. It's 10 to 12 already. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. The suffragettes argument doesn't make sense, James, says Tom in Plymouth. How can we be proud to be British because of the suffragettes when they were fighting against generational injustice forced upon them by Britain? I can be impressed, in awe, or emboldened by the suffragettes, but they don't make me proud to be British because they were essentially fighting against Britain. It's an absolutely brilliant point from Tom in Plymouth. It's finding it very hard to be proud of anything, except perhaps the way a country looks after its most vulnerable. And we're not very good at that anymore. So even if you were using that as a measure of pride in Britishness, you'd be less proud of being British today than you were 10 years ago. Even the British passport has become diminished since the abolition of freedom of movement, which these clownish politicians encouraged you to actually celebrate. Speaking of clownish politicians, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's trade deal with India has come under scrutiny from Graham Langtry at Politico London. He's on the line, so I'm probably going to embarrass him. This guy is an absolutely brilliant journalist. When I was researching my new book, I reminded myself of the work that he did on the trade deal with Australia and Boris Johnson's sort of clumsy diminishment of it at the final hour. Even as Liz Truss started marching around doing a lap of honour, she was privately furious with Boris Johnson for essentially for reasons that aren't entirely clear, except he was desperate to be liked. He basically rolled onto his back and invited the Australian trade delegation all the way up to the Prime Minister to tickle his tummy. I don't think, Graham Langtry, I've ever read a better sourced example of trade journalism. It was quite incredible. How did you get all these people to talk to you?
Thanks, James. I mean, I've just been working on this beat for the past 3 years and have been just slowly plugging away at, talking to all people who are involved in the trade negotiations and business groups and unions and NGOs and anybody that's thinking about the kind of post-Brexit trade agenda that the UK has. And it, with that kind of like legwork, it just kind of falls together.
Nicely put. Single-handedly restoring my faith in this profession, Graham. And it is to the Indian trade deal, the UK-India trade deal, that you turn your attention this morning. What have you found?
Yeah, so I'd heard from multiple people that there was a briefing call recently that the Trade Department did with people on the call, everybody from like NGOs to unions to businesses. And the British government was kind of presenting a couple of the chapters of the deal and the text to them. And these were the labor and environment chapters. And what they were told is that these chapters don't have a kind of dispute resolution mechanism, a kind of enforceable binding, legally binding treaty mechanism that would require either side to kind of hold the other to whatever environmental or labor standards they currently have. So if they were to bring in a new law, say India or even the UK brought in, like, say, a strikes bill, or if India, say, changed some of the labor rules in any of federally, that the other side wouldn't be able to challenge them, saying, well, this law is potentially undercutting us. Indian steel is made to, lower environmental standards than what the UK's steel industry has. So already as a kind of baseline, there's potential for Britain to be undercut there. So that's what this deal is lacking, and it's something that other trade deals brokered by other nations actually has in it, and the UK's deals with Australia and New Zealand has this mechanism.
So manufacturers or food producers who are operating on considerably less regulated grounds would be free to export their produce and products into the UK to the detriment of anybody doing similar work here.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, if those imports or exports are being made, yeah.
I noticed that you spoke to Rosa Crawford at the TUC, who points out that suppression of trade unions, child labour and forced labour are all widespread in India. So the thing that is missing from this putative trade deal would be the thing that said if something has been made in that context, in a sector where trade union membership is suppressed, or where child labour is used, or where forced labour is utilised, you will not be allowed to send it to us. But we've got no way of checking.
Yeah, I mean the British government wouldn't be able to kind of challenge India itself,
right, to prove it
on those rules. Yeah.
Why are we doing it? Is this an example of us being a little bit too desperate for a deal, which was the subtext of your coverage of the Australian deal?
I mean, I don't know. The negotiations are ongoing,
of course,
right? So we don't know if they're actually going to strike a deal. I mean, if they do, Britain might not be desperate for a deal. I'm not sure. I mean, the Prime Minister is on track, or he's scheduled to be going to India later this month with the aim of potentially striking this deal. But we don't know. I don't know. Maybe the reporting will change things. Who knows?
But the idea of it, not any deal, if it does happen, will not include legally enforceable commitments on labour rights or environmental standards. And I mentioned the quality of your sourcing at the outset. 5 people who've been briefed on the text have told you this, so it's multiple sourced. So, I mean, it's going to open up a potential Pandora's box in terms of goods moving from here to elsewhere as well, isn't it? Because we wouldn't be able to export anything that had been imported. into Europe, for example. I'm just sort of thinking about because in Northern Ireland this week they've started putting the labels on things saying not for sale into the European Union, haven't they? So we're gonna get ever more. The more complicated these trade agreements are, the more different they are from one to the next, the more complicated everything gets in this country ultimately.
Yes, trade is a very complicated topic.
Which is why we're very grateful to you for helping us steer our way through it.
Yeah, so supply chains are quite complex, and
I find it oddly fascinating. And you actually feature, Graham, in my new book. So I must send you a copy when it comes out, because it's a astonishing sort of guide to the machinations and the complications of it. While politicians, of course, go in the opposite direction and pretend it's really very straightforward and something that should be celebrated. You can read that article on the Politico website by Graham Langtry under the headline Rishi Sunak to sign UK-India trade deal without binding worker or environment pledges. And remember, everybody knew exactly what they were voting for, i.e. a trade deal with India that would completely overlook any binding environmental or worker pledges. I guess squeeze in one more call. Have I got time to squeeze in? I don't think I have. No, my apologies. Well, that's nuts. We can return to this on a later date. The switchboard's still full. It was full at 7 minutes past 11. Normally, it doesn't move until about 15:15 because you're so used to my interminable monologues. But the experiment with opening up the phone lines early, I said to you before that it never gets boring, this job, because it changes all the time. I may start doing that a little bit more often now. But it's Thursday. It's 12 noon. It's Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. You ring in with a question. Maybe the switchboard wasn't full. If people still, no, it was. Yeah, crikey. But people are now ringing in. So clear the switchboard of people who are proud to be British but don't know why, and fill it instead with fascinating questions and inquiries. I've got a lovely book to recommend to you as well as a Mystery Hour fan. Susie Dent has a book out that is almost tailor-made for our purposes, and she's going to be a guest on Full Disclosure very soon. I had the pleasure of having a look at the book already. But if you want to get involved in Mystery Hour, you know what to do.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Mystery Hour with James O'Brien.
Oh, gosh, is it that time already? Yes, it is. I hear you say. Mystery Hour is upon us. There's a prize. Did you know that? For my favourite contribution of the week? Well, the prize is a Mystery Hour board game. A wonderful Mystery Hour board game. You can find out more details at mysteryhour.co.uk. Indeed, you can buy a Mystery Hour board game. Remember, Christmas is coming. I got sent... I must say thank you to the people that sent me my Christmas pork scratchings advent calendar. There's another one this year as well. I must get the name of the company right. I'll just double check it because I got it wrong last year. There's two advent calendars. There's one with pork scratchings in each door and one with pork scratchings and a can of beer as well. That to me is Christmas. Pork scratchings and beer. That's ho ho ho. So anyway, that's mysteryhour.co.uk. If you want to read the terms and conditions about this competition, then you go to lbc.co.uk. That didn't sound very professional, did it? I can only apologise. Should we just crack straight on? I'm just tearing up the rules this week. Just woohoo! So I literally taking calls at 7 minutes past 11, not waiting for the end of the monologue, not even going to tell you what Mystery Hour is, not going to describe it or remind you of it. I'm just going to dive straight in and do it. Gethin's in Cardiff. Gethin, question or answer?
It's a question, please, James. Huge fans. It's a pleasure to speak to you today.
Likewise, mate. Go on, what have you got?
My question is,
yes.
Why does food and drink taste better, or why do we think it tastes better when somebody else has prepared it? Now, I was speaking to your producers, and I'm wondering if it's because your taste buds are already exposed.
Because of the smells while cooking.
Exactly, and the reason I think that is because, say now I'm batch cooking on a Sunday evening and eat that meal on the Sunday, it never tastes as good as the following day or the day after.
Never tastes as good. So, that can be marinated. That might be for different reasons. That's very true. That's very true. Although is a cup of tea marinated? No, this is true. So, I mean, first of all, are we confident that everyone is going to recognise the premise of your question, Gethin? Is everyone going to go, God, he's right? Yeah, it's always much nicer when someone else cooks it. Christmas, I do Christmas dinner. And
Yeah.
I'm always slightly disappointed. Everyone else is sitting around the table singing my praises, and I'm not enjoying
Exactly
it.
that.
I'm not enjoying it as much as I was expected to, because I don't know why. I almost feel a bit full before I sit down, even though I haven't eaten anything. Could be
Exactly, yeah. And even, like I say, even if you're not trying it as you're cooking, it still has the same effect, at least for me.
I think, yeah, me too. I mean, let's find out. I mean, if it is possible to find out. So we're agreeing on the premise, are we? Do you find food is nicer when other people? I'm just checking with my crack team of operatives. Do you find food is nicer when other people? Yeah, we're all fairly in broad agreement on this. And then the question becomes why. I like it. What were you batch cooking on Sunday? What were you doing?
Oh, good question. What did I do on Sunday? Oh, it was a pad thai.
Really?
So Asian food's my favourite. So,
you batch cook that? Do the noodles? Yeah, of course they stay all right.
No, apart from the noodles. So I always do the noodles fresh on the day after, but
you do the sauce. I get you, eh? Very nice. 6 minutes after 12 is the time. Why does it taste? Now, why would Gethin's pad thai taste even nicer? 6 minutes after 12. What did I say? 9. So the microphone went weird. Why would Gethin's pad thai taste even nicer if someone else had cooked it? 0345 6060 973. Sam's in Brașov in Romania. Sam, question or answer?
Hi, James. Question.
Carry on.
So I'm with you with the Christmas dinner, by the way. When you've cooked it, it's not the same.
It's weird, right?
But, yeah.
There we go.
So, anyway, my question. This came up, you spoke to Ros Atkins 2 or 3 weeks back about his new book.
That's right. Very good new book.
Have you got a new book coming up?
I don't like to talk about it, but I've got a book called How They Broke Britain that's out on November the 2nd, actually, Sam. Unfortunately, the book tour itself is now sold out in several cities, but there are some events at the Henley Literary Festival, the Cheltenham Literary Festival, and I've got a couple of events with Toppings Bookshop up in Scotland, and I'll also be at the Hay on Wye Winter Festival. How kind of you to ask.
You're not coming to Brașov. I'm
not coming to. Well, is there a literary festival in Brașov?
There's a Transylvania Literary Festival. I'll send you a tweet later.
So let me know. I don't know if it's that kind of book, but you never know your luck. So actually, there are some people in it. Nigel Farage gets his own chapter, so that would fit right in Transylvania. But anyway, where were we?
Anyway, so October the 2nd, you said. What day is that?
You know full well, November the 2nd. It is,
November.
And
Yes,
it's a Thursday. But it is a Thursday. Yeah.
It is a Thursday. So I have, and you interviewed Ros Atkins.
I did.
His book was out on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And I have lots of books all lined up, ready to come out on Thursdays.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I know what your question is going to be.
Is there a reason why? Was there a reason why Thursday was the book they were published?
Yeah.
Is it just tradition now, or is there still a valid reason?
I think it's because of the charts.
Oh, okay.
I think that Wednesday night is when you find out if you've made the Sunday Times top 10 bestsellers. So that would be 7 days, wouldn't it? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And that, so you get the full 7 days to maximise sales in the hope of getting
in the first week,
getting yourself into the chart. I think that's the reason. Qualifications. Ask me what my qualifications are, Sam.
Go on then, James. What are your qualifications?
Best-selling author, mate. Sunday Times best-selling author. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would make sense because I remember when I was growing up and we only had one cinema in town with one screen. It was always Thursday when the new films came out as well. So
same reason to get it, to maximise the chance of getting to the top of the charts. And a round of applause for me. Thank you, Sam. And thank you very much for the opportunity of allowing me to break with convention and plug my own volume. Mandy's in Crawley. Mandy, question or answer?
It's a question, James.
Carry on.
Okay, a bit of background to this.
Yes.
This came to mind yesterday evening.
Right.
I went into our back garden and found that a snail was sliding up our back door.
Slithering,
yeah, it's probably a better word, isn't it?
Right.
And my husband picked it up, took it off the door and lobbed it down the garden.
Interesting.
And as I was watching it spiralling around, I wondered, do snails get dizzy?
What does snail get to? So you mean like a form of what we would get if we were spinning around quickly?
Yes.
Yeah. It's an odd one, isn't it? Because it would not happen naturally to a snail. In the same, a snail, for rather obvious reasons, a snail couldn't decide to spin round quickly in the way that a human can.
Absolutely.
So who would know the answer to the question of whether or not? It would depend on their nervous system, would it? What causes dizziness, and would it apply to a snail? It's not the most obviously answerable question we've ever had on the programme.
Okay.
But that's a good thing. I mean, I like questions that aren't obviously answered, but I'm just trying to think who might know. Right, I find out, did it come back? Did the snail come back?
No, I think he threw it far away now.
And did he put a bit of spin on it? Did he put like a little...
did,
yeah,
he
I thought he
did.
might have done a little bit of top spin. Get it right
Poor
over.
thing.
Into the neighbours? Did it go over? Did it clear the fence? Did it land in the neighbour's garden?
I'm not going to answer that.
That's a yes. Okay, we shall find out, Mandy, whether or not snails get dizzy. Or we won't. Who knows? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. It's 11 minutes after 12. And the company I need to thank for my advent calendars is the Snaffling Pig Company. I called it the Snuffling Pig, I think, last time I thanked, but I can heartily recommend their pork scratchings. They are delicious. I'll tell you what else is really nice. And I must thank Galaxy as well, because I mentioned to you how much I was enjoying Galaxy biscuits. Your Galaxy digestives, like a chocolate biscuit, but with Galaxy chocolate on top. And they sent us a bunch of packets of it. So thank you for that. I think you were off, Keith. I shared them with everyone else. Seriously, News Desk had some, Online had a packet, gave a packet to the producer's desk, Weekend Team. I dished them right. I only took one packet home. I dished them right out because I was worried about, the old waistline. But Snaffling Pig Company. But I tell you what else is delicious. I don't know if you've come across this yet. You know Terry's Chocolate Orange? They do a mint one. And that is special. I like to try all the new things when they invent them. I like all the ice lollies. I'll tell you what else is delicious. You remember Refresher Sweets? The bright yellow Refresher Sweets. They're absolutely gorgeous. One of my all-time favourite sweets. They do a lolly now. There's an ice lolly. A Refresher Sweets ice lolly, available in Morrison's and all good supermarkets. So those are my recommendations of the day. 12 minutes after 12 is the time. Why does food taste better when someone else has cooked it? And do snails get dizzy? Catherine's in Hemel Hempstead. Catherine, question or answer?
Oh, hello. It's a question, please.
Carry on.
What happens at the borders of countries that drive on different sides of the road?
Can we think of such a border?
Between Thailand and Vietnam and Afghanistan and Pakistan I've got so far, but my geography's appalling.
No, that's I wouldn't have known that. I've got Thailand and Vietnam. I don't. I mean, would it be? I mean, if you've got to go through a border post, it would be quite straightforward, wouldn't it? Or
but
not?
what if there are no border posts?
Well, I don't.
Then you're
know.
in a pickle.
You are in a pickle. You are in a. I mean, we're an island, so it doesn't count, does it? Because you're always going to get on the boat.
And then they remind you when you get off the boat or off the Eurostar.
They do, but what we want I saw a bridge once, Catherine, that it may be what you're describing. It was the most astonishing piece of engineering, and I think that it did what you describe. I think that you drove onto either end of the bridge, and it somehow managed to put you when you drove off the bridge, you were driving on the other side of the road to when you drove onto it.
Well, that makes sense. If it's a single track going to the other side, and then by the time you get off it merges you the other way round.
Yeah, I think it was round. It was almost like a figure of 8 of some sort of... So one going under and one going over, like a mini spaghetti junction, depositing cars driving on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, and cars driving towards it on the left-hand side, coming out of it.
That's really clever.
Oh, it is really... I wish I could show it to you.
So that's one big road. What if it's kind of, the small little country bumpkin roads?
Oh, you're a bit picky, aren't you? I just
want to know that no one's going to get into trouble.
No. No, I see. So like a little back road. If for example, Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland diverged, then there'd be all sorts of crossing points. Well, I'll try and find out for you, but I guess what we'll get is someone who's got quite a lot of knowledge of one specific example, rather than a full gamut of all borders where this applies. I love it. What prompts the question, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm a really bad driver, and I came off of the Eurotunnel and I drove on the wrong side of the road.
That doesn't necessarily mean you're a really bad driver.
Well, no, I really am as well.
Oh, so am I. So you're in good company. There's no, nothing to be ashamed of. Although I've never done that. I've never managed to drive on the wrong side of the road. 12:15 is the time. So we've got the question about driving on the left hand and the right hand. What happens when you reach the border between two countries where they drive on different sides of the road? Do snails get busy? And why does food taste nicer? Why is food not as enjoyable when you cook it yourself?
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien.
It is 18 minutes after 12. We may have a problem. I don't think that Thailand shares a border with Vietnam. Max texted in to say that, and Keith has checked. Quite a few people making that point. So Catherine wasn't kidding when she said she was a bad driver. She's managed to traverse a non-existent border. But the question stands. What happens when countries that have where you drive on different sides of the road with a land border? And someone surely is going to send me a picture of that magnificent bridge that I mentioned. Otherwise, the very distinct possibility I might have dreamt the whole thing. I do dream of bridges. I get quite moved by bridges and cranes. It's all gone a bit partridge, hasn't it? I probably shouldn't have mentioned the mint chocolate oranges either. Also, what do you call a mint chocolate orange? What's it called? Because it's shaped like an orange. That's why it's called a chocolate orange, but it tastes of orange. But we can't call it mint balls, Keith. It's a chocolate orange, but it's mint flavoured, not orange flavoured. So what's it called? A Terry's chocolate mint, but that doesn't have any shape. Oh, it's a complicated time to be alive, isn't it? Mike's in Marlow. Mike, question or answer?
Yeah, good morning, James.
Hello, Mike.
When you get a storm, there's Agnes, is it the one we've just had?
I believe
whipping
so.
Up all, I think so, but whipping up all that seawater into a storm, and then it all comes inland, and it all dumps itself all over Britain. It comes down as fresh water.
Does it?
Where does the salt go?
Hang on a minute. What do you mean it? So what? The sea doesn't go into the sky, does it?
Of course it does.
What do you mean? Of course it does.
Well, in a storm, it all gets whipped up, doesn't it? And evaporation and
well,
everything
if it
else
evaporates,
makes...
if it evaporates, the salt stays behind.
How?
What are you laughing at me?
Salty water.
Yes, but salt doesn't. When you boil salt water, the salt stays behind. Did you not do chemistry at school? This is like the first experiment ever. Mike, I swear.
I'm not having that.
Are you winding me up?
That.
Are you winding?
No.
So you go and do it. You can literally do it now. You go put a pan of water on the stove,
right,
and put in a significant amount of salt. Turn it on and phone me back before 1 o'clock.
And are you telling me that steam that comes off doesn't contain any salt?
I am categorically telling you that steam coming off doesn't contain any salt. Yes.
I'm not having that.
Will you do? How do you think? All right. Let's think of it the other way around. How do you think they make salt?
That by boiling the water away, or evaporating the water. But are you telling me that all that turmoil across the Atlantic that ends up dumping itself all over Manchester and everywhere else in Northern Ireland hasn't got an element of salt in it?
I'm not telling you that because I don't know. That's why I said, are you sure that are you sure? What do you mean, ha? That's like the opposite of a gotcha. It's like the sea might, I don't know, meteorologically speaking, whether or not a sort of typhoon or something sucks seawater into the air. It's highly unlikely that it then deposits it because it couldn't turn into a cloud. If it turned into a cloud, all the salt would fall out of the sky. I can't believe you're laughing because this is mad. This is one of the maddest questions. Are you going to do the experiment for me, Mike?
Good.
No, go and do it. Are you at home at the moment? Are you at home?
No, I'm not. I'm at work. I'm on a building site.
I swear to you that if you put a pan of salt water on the stove and go away, when you come back, there will be no water and lots of salt.
Yeah, I get that, but that's boiling. I understand that.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to boil. I mean, that's just you're speeding it up. The process of evaporation from the sea is I mean, that's it. That's.
Well, when a storm gets whipped into those.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to put. But I don't know that a storm gets whipped into the rain cloud. But I'll put it on the board, Mike.
I'm not happy with your answer.
Well,
mate,
I can't believe you're not happy with my answer. But I mean, it's possible that there's a very specific meteorological process that you're describing, but it couldn't become a cloud. You see, if it was salt water, because the minute it evaporates, the minute water becomes steam or vapor, the salt is left behind. And so, I mean, maybe someone can answer your question more satisfactorily than I can. There'll be salt in the air, I guess, tiny little particles. It's why cars rust more near the sea than they do All right, so maybe that might be part of the answer. I like it, Mike. Take care. 23 minutes after 12 is the time. David is in Cambridge. David, question or answer?
It's a question, please, James.
Carry on.
So in children's books and in comic books, when a character is sleeping and they're snoring, you see it written down as that several Zs, that Z kind of written down.
Yeah.
What is the origin of that? Why is it Z? Now, I understand, obviously, that you can't exactly read the snoring sound, which I won't do on the air right now, but how did it come from Z as snoring, essentially?
Is it not the exhale?
I'm not sure. I mean, I've never recorded myself as snoring going... hearing Zs when I breathe out in snoring. I don't know.
So you breathe. So you're thinking of the inhale, which is a like that.
Yeah.
But the Zs in the Beano are the X. So it would be. No.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I'm seeing. Is every person different with? Do they exhale? You know. Like blowing out.
Why Zs? What else could it be?
Zs?
What else could it be?
I don't. That's what I'd like to know. That's part of the question. How was it decided that Z was the way?
Okay.
Was it just
who did it first? I mean, it'd probably be DC Thompson. It'd be one of the early comic artists or something like that. I can't see because that's where it first appeared, isn't it? I don't know. Whether would it appear in literature or in song? I can't think of anything. I mean, we talk about Zs, but what came first? It's chicken and egg now. When you talk about having Zs or having a snooze, Zs, getting some Zs. Well, it's a nice question, actually, David. Well done.
Thank you.
No, thank you. That's what I've written down on my notes. I just wrote so I know what that question is. And there's David's name, 25 after 12. Paul's in Tiverton. Paul, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on.
The driving on the left versus driving on the right and what happens at borders.
Yes.
Until 1972, in Sweden, they drove on the left.
Right.
In Norway, they drove on the right.
Okay, perfect.
So there's a lot of country roads between those countries. Country roads between those two countries.
Yes.
At the border. The reason I know is because, one reason I know is because I watched a film called Kitchen Stories, a Swedish film called Kitchen Stories, which I thoroughly recommend. Brilliant film.
Yes.
And it was about a travelling salesman.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a scene at the border. He was in Sweden and he was travelling and doing his work in Norway, selling his goods, doing some market research, actually.
Yeah.
And there was a scene at the border. And what they did is they simply had a border marking saying, "Welcome to Norway," whatever. And they simply have a permanent barrier across half of the road.
Right.
So that if you're approaching from Sweden, you're driving on the left.
Yeah.
And there's this barrier in front of you.
Yeah.
And it says, "Welcome to Norway," now you drive on the right. And you just go around the barrier, and that puts you on the right-hand side of the road, and you stay there. And
so it's not a dual. So it's not a two. It's not. There's not. Yeah. Okay. That makes
so
sense.
if you're coming from the other direction, that same barrier is on your right. So it's still in front of you as you approach it, and you cross over onto the left, and you carry on the left.
Perfect.
So that's what they did between Sweden and Norway.
That's a good answer, and it gets you a round of applause. But I have been sent, I can add to that, it is called the Lotus Bridge between China and... How do you pronounce that word, Paul? Is it Macau? Is it Macau?
Me? You're asking me?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Well, you're the only person here.
About the Lotus Bridge.
I can't ask anyone else. The Lotus Bridge between China and Macau is the one that like redirects you from one lane to the other as you cross it.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, your caller, your questioner was asking about what happens on little country lanes.
Yes, I know. I'm not. You're getting a round of applause, mate. I'm just bringing the bridge into the conversation because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, now if you've got a steady flow of loads of traffic, then of course you've got to do something else.
Yeah,
you've got to have
exactly.
I don't know how it's done.
So there's the qualifications. You watched the film.
I watched the film. Yeah, brilliant film. Kitchen Stories.
Oh, well, I'll jot that down. And you get a nice round of applause, the first of the day. Well played. Lovely stuff. So, Catherine, there are various answers, as I suggested that there would be, but Paul has provided you with a concrete example, albeit of a border that no longer exists, and the Lotus Bridge between China and Macau. I've been sent several photographs of it now. It's a really beautiful bridge. So imagine a backwards capital B from above, and then two lanes and one of them goes under. Well, just look at it. Look it up, seriously. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Ross is in Bridgewater in Somerset. Ross, question or answer?
I had an answer.
What happened?
You just answered it.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. What, the bridge?
It was, yes.
Where is it? Have you been there?
China.
Have you been there?
I have been there, yeah.
To talk me through it. Have you been over it? Have you been over it?
I have been over it, yeah.
How exciting. What was it like?
Yeah, it's kind of it's pretty interesting bit of engineering. I used to go to Hong Kong and China quite a bit for work, so I'd be driven over it a fair number of times, and often get the experience of just looking at it rather than trying to avoid any obstacles.
How does it? I mean, I think I had something a bit similar on my Scalextric when I was a child.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of like the figure of 8 Scalextric.
Yeah, and it would change lanes, wouldn't it, for the second half of the track? And
exactly. Yeah.
Which is why you had to have different coloured cars.
Yeah, I mean, it helps to know who's won, I suppose.
Well, precisely. I'm going to give you a round of applause. I feel I stole your thunder very unfairly.
No problem, that happens a lot.
Same here. Round of applause for Ross, please. Mad that. I love it. Crikey, it's that time already. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Questions still in need of answers. Mike's question about clouds, water, weather, rain, evaporation, basic science. David's question about Zeds. Why do cartoon people sleeping have Zeds coming out of their mouth? We've done Catherine's question. Mandy's question about whether or not snails can get dizzy, I think is unlikely to be. I suppose you could just say no and then explain why. Of course they don't get dizzy. And why does food not taste quite as nice when you've cooked it yourself? And both Gethin and I have personal experience of that phenomenon, so you are not allowed to challenge it. Amelia Cox is here now with your headlines.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien. Call 0345 6060 973.
It is 25 minutes to 1, and it's all gone a bit bridge-based, this week's Mystery Hour, thanks to Emily, who, amazingly, it's almost an unbelievable coincidence, is currently making a large batch of pork scratchings. But she tells me about the Snake Bridge in Macclesfield, which I was already aware of, actually. I haven't visited it, but I've seen photographs. It's a canal-side bridge, which allows a tow horse to swap sides of the canal without untethering them from the boat. I don't know why I find bridges so mesmeric, but bridges that sort of do more than the normal bridge are even more mesmeric than bridges that just do normal bridge-based services. The aqueducts are fascinating as well, aren't they? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you, Emily. That is well worth people looking up if they share my bridge enthusiasms. I'm not even pretending anymore. I'm basically Alan Partridge. That's fine. And those chocolate things, it's just called a Terry's Chocolate Mint. They've completely given up on any attempt to bring the spherical nature of the chocolate into the description. So, you know a Terry's Chocolate Orange, yeah? Yeah, they've done a mint one. It's called a Terry's Chocolate Mint. It's just a chocolate mint, even though it's shaped like an orange. I feel they've dropped the ball there. So they could have called it that. But anyway, on we go. Hal's in Brighton. Professor Hal is in Brighton. Question or answer?
Hello, James.
Hello,
it was the evaporation question.
Yeah. It was a bit of an odd one, that, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know if it merits bandwidth on Mystery Hour, because as you've wisely pointed out, it is sort of GCSE chemistry.
But he laughed. But he laughed at me.
Well, joke's on him.
Well, he certainly is. So, I mean, are there no circumstances in which salt? Because sometimes, Saharan sand gets caught up in the atmosphere, doesn't it? So salt could perhaps as well.
It's vanishingly small. The reality is, as you've wisely pointed out, when the sun or the wind picks up the water effectively evaporates, it rises until it reaches a temperature at which it recondenses and it rains down. That's the whole basis of the water cycle. So every time we go to the toilet, that goes into the sewer, the sun evaporates it off and it just goes in a big old cycle. The salt stays where it is. The boiling point of sodium chloride is, I think, 2,000 degrees, give or take. So it's never, ever going to evaporate up. And even if it sort of whips up into the air, it'll just fall back down again. So, I mean, there's lots of evidence. I mean, black T-shirts, you get those sort of salt streaks on them, don't you? Because the sweat evaporates and so forth. Yes. And I'm sure you remember making copper sulfate crystals at school. So it's the basis of evaporation.
I mean, those are the only two experiments anyone can really remember, making copper sulfate crystals and boiling up salt water to get salt left in the crucible.
That's exactly. I mean, as again you've always pointed out, the salt flats is where they make salt. That expensive salt you buy in Waitrose or whatever.
Malden.
Yeah, exactly. Those big crystals. You get that by putting salt.
We did it on holiday, Hal. We did it in Greece. We brought our own home.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you what, bringing 2 kilos of white crystals through customs at Kalamata Airport was quite exciting, but they're obviously very easy to prove that it was salt. Qualifications?
I'm delighted to say I'm Professor of Public Understanding at the University of Brighton for the time being.
For the time being.
1 month to go.
We'll be there. Well, thank you, mate. Always a pleasure. And have another round. We'll squeeze in a couple more before doomsday.
Thank you.
Beautifully done. Thank you, Hal. Look after yourself. 12:38 is the time. Gonzalo is in Southend-on-Sea. Gonzalo, question or answer?
Question.
Carry on.
Why does my mouth is drier when I drink more water than the days that I don't drink as much water? It feels like much more hydrated.
Really?
Yes.
So when you drink a lot of water,
my mouth becomes
your
much
mouth
more
is drier.
Yes.
Is it going to be the thing? Have you got the? Is it? Will it be? Have you got it? Have you got it? Could it possibly be osmosis?
But wait. But then, if I am drinking more water, then basically, shouldn't my mouth will be like more?
You'd think so.
Hydrated?
Yeah, you'd think so. Well, I'll find out for you. I like it. You don't know why I just did that, do you?
The osmosis.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, because like water will pass through the
No.
membrane.
Why you heard that Hosanna in the background? Hallelujah in the background.
Oh, no, a long time that you don't use the osmosis.
Yeah. I mean, that was there. It was a very, very early gimmick, long before Woke Watch and Dory's Watch and the rest of it. That was possibly the very first one, because whenever I didn't know the answer to a science question, I would say that word and quite often be correct, but I doubt that I am on this occasion. Thank you, Gonzalo. Why when you've drunk a lot of water, does your mouth feel drier than it does when you haven't drunk any water at all? Whew. Tim's in Washington. Tyne on Weir. Question or answer?
It's a question, James.
Carry on, man.
Right. Usually, I have to listen to this program on the podcast version, and when I do,
yes,
I get the adverts. And one of the adverts I heard a couple of weeks ago, a few times, was for WhatsApp, the messaging app.
Was it?
So it was. Yeah. So it just got us thinking.
Right.
It's a free app. They pay to advertise it. They pay to develop it and innovate it. So what do they get out of it? How do they monetize it?
It's a good question, I think. Yeah, I don't know. No, I mean, you're on. Let's do it. Let's get it. How does WhatsApp make money? If indeed it does. I mean, is it part of Facebook? Which is it? Yeah, it's linked to Facebook. Maybe so it's all Meta, isn't it? It's literally, it's the name of the company. So so how does WhatsApp make money? If indeed it does, I'll try and find out for you, Tim. It's a good question. Thank you, mate. Mind how you go. Steve is, should I say, also in Northumberland? Would I be showing off my ignorance of English geography? I don't know. But Steve is in Northumberland, which is quite vague. You didn't chop that tree down, I hope.
No, that wasn't me, no.
Oh, well, yeah, you would see. Wouldn't exactly own up to it now, would you, mate? Phantom tree chopper, the sycamore. Question or answer? Question or answer, Steve?
Well, I have a question, James, and it's a one that's puzzled me for many years. And it's imagine you're sitting at a restaurant,
okay,
or you've enjoyed a lovely meal,
right?
You're absolutely stuffed.
Yeah, got it.
You can't get another pea in your mouth.
Not even a wafer thin mint.
Yeah, there's food left on your plate. You can't eat another thing yet. Yet you can quaff a pint of beer. What's all that about?
Okay, so you've got no more room for solid food, but you're going to be fine with liquid.
Yeah, you can stick a pint down your neck, no problem. I've done it myself.
I have too.
I'm sure, mate. Yeah. How does that work? And
I don't know. You would have thought. I mean, is it the weight of the food? I don't know. It's a great question.
Yeah, well, I've quite often thought that maybe the liquid sort of runs between
the cracks, like the cement, like the cement in our guts, and the food is the bricks, and so we're full of bricks. But if we could still, that might be it. That could fit. That's actually probably quite a good. I don't know. I shall find out for you. So you've had a slap up feed. You've had a slap up feed with all the trimmings. You can't force down a wafer thin mint, but you can easily make short work of a pint of ale.
Yeah, that's it.
You're on.
As usual, you captured it in a nutshell.
That's what I'm here for, Steve. That's what I'm here for. It's 12:43. Alistair is in Orpington. Alistair, question or answer?
Hi, James.
Hello.
Good show. It's
Thank you. It's
a
all right.
steward's inquiry.
What?
Sorry, it's a steward's inquiry
Go on.
the question regarding salt and evaporation and the sea and everything.
Crikey, go on.
Okay, what happens is that you get spray over the sea. Most of that goes down again, but some of it goes up higher, comes into very small particles, and each very small particle of water actually has a very small, very small piece of salt in it. When this evaporates, you still get these very small particles of salt high up above sea. Later on in the cycle, these form the nucleus for raindrops to form. Now, we're talking fractional, very small bits, and by the time a raindrop's big enough to fall out the atmosphere, it's a millimetre or more across, so they aren't actually very salty, but there is some salt there.
What, in every raindrop?
Not in every raindrop. If you're over land, you get very fine sand particles or vegetation particles.
So every raindrop needs a solid nucleus?
Pretty much, yes.
Well, I never. And I mean, absolutely minuscule, infinitesimally small, but something a bit like a pearl in an oyster. It has to start somewhere. It has to go build on something.
That's the current theories on it. I mean, nobody's been ever up there.
That's the paradigm. What are your qualifications?
About 50 years back, I did a PhD on rainfall and radar, and it involves knowing a bit about raindrops.
That'll do. Do they keep falling on your head?
Only if I go out in the rain.
Round of applause for Alistair. I think it was an enhancement necessary. Well, I don't know, actually. I mean, I don't want to rain on Hal's parade, if you pardon the pun, but I liked that. It is 12:45.
Mystery Hour with James O'Brien. This is LBC.
It is 12:48. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Question still in need of answers. Why does food not taste as nice when you've cooked it yourself? Can snails get dizzy? We've done that one. Why do cartoonists use Zs to denote sleeping? Why does your mouth feel drier when you've drunk a lot of water? How does WhatsApp make money? And similar to the water question, another water question, how come you can neck a pint of liquid when you couldn't face another morsel of food? It just doesn't make sense. Either you're full or you're not full. But if it's a pint, it doesn't have to be ale. It could just be water. Chris is in Dartford. Question or answer?
Good afternoon, James. Is a question, please.
Carry on.
Why is a Mr. Whippy 99 called a 99?
Nobody knows.
I think there's got to be an answer because I've been to France and Germany and they have the same thing as well. So it's got to be named after something.
Well, I mean, it's a flake. It's the size of the flake is the best available theory. Half a flake is called a flake 99.
Really?
Yeah, in the 20s.
Okay, I'll go with that because you're quite a knowledgeable person.
No, I'm not. I promise I'm not. Well, I am, but not on this occasion. It's come up before. It's a bit of a hardy perennial. We haven't done it for years, but no one is 100% sure.
All right. Okay. Oh well, I'll go with that then. You know what? I'll trust you on this occasion.
Thanks, mate. I'll take the round of applause, but I won't take the game. Sharon's in High Wycombe. Sharon, question or answer?
Answer, I hope.
Carry on.
So it's to do with why does food not taste quite so nice?
Yes. Yeah, good.
So I believe so lots of people would say, okay, taste is linked to smell.
Right.
But when your cells in your nose pick up, sort of detect the stimulus of the chemicals, that then goes along your neurons to your brain, and in between there are synapses.
Yeah.
What happens is that between the synapses there are little vesicles that contain something called a neurotransmitter.
Right.
And eventually, if you're surrounded by this smell, your brain is telling it. So you're told. The vesicles run out.
Oh.
So you become habituated. So I'm going to say something to you now.
Good.
That you'll you'll recognise this. So, before I said this, you will not probably have been thinking about the feeling of your clothes on your skin.
No.
And but do you feel them now?
Yeah.
That's because you become habituated with it. So it's like a protective.
Got it.
Protective mechanism.
Got it.
So that's what I believe is the answer.
That's a brilliant answer. Qualifications?
Retired biology teacher.
Yeah, it's beautifully done. Beautifully done. So it is the fact that you're smelling it is I mean, it's not that your brain's not thinking that you're full.
Oh no! It's just the fact that you have the chemicals are detected by the sensory cells in your nose. That gets.
So your appetite's not the same then, because you've become habituated to the lovely smells.
I don't think so. I agree. You don't always feel as full when you've cooked it yourself.
No.
I need to get my husband to cook more for me.
Yes, it's a lovely answer, and it's earned you a round of applause.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Lovely stuff. I've got some sad news for you, actually. Sir Michael Gambon has died at the age of 82. His family have announced a astonishing career. I mean, one of those titans of British stage and screen, which is a phrase that really does him justice. Younger viewers, of course, will know him best as the second Dumbledore in the Harry Potter films after Richard Harris passed away. People my age probably watched him in the Dennis Potter. He was incredible in that, wasn't he? He was so incredible. I can't remember what it was called. The Singing Detective. Yeah, that was incredible. I remember watching that. But he was in loads and announced just in the last hour or so that he has passed away at the age of 82. 12:53 is the time. Simon is in Beckenham. Simon, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
It's about the snails. Do they get dizzy?
Do snails get dizzy? Yes.
Right. So obviously not. So the reason we get dizzy, this is because we have like little canals in our inner ear with fluid in.
Yeah.
And when we tilt our head, this triggers probably synapses or something on either end, and this is how we feel dizzy.
So if you haven't got the little canals in your ears, then you can't get dizzy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming snails don't have human ears.
I'm assuming snails don't have human ears either. In fact, I would go so far as I could prove to you that snails don't get dizzy.
How would you do that?
Have you ever seen one fall over?
I've seen one fly through the sky spinning.
Crikey, I think I know who threw it. It was Mandy's husband. No, you've never seen a snail fall over, so therefore they can't. Qualifications?
A-level biology.
Yeah, whatever.
Same age as you, actually. So it's
a while ago then. Served you well. Thank you, Simon. Bill's in Brighton. Bill, question or answer?
I've got an answer, James.
Carry on.
99 ice cream.
It's not true, whatever you're about to say.
Right.
It's an urban myth, mate. Which one is it going to be? It's something to do with the racehorse or Italian soldiers?
Shall I hang up now?
No, I want to hear it, and then I'm going to laugh.
Soldiers.
Italian soldiers. What's the story?
Oh, a Regiment 99, and when the Italian migrants came over to England, they wanted to name their ice cream after something good.
Yeah.
And there was a 99th Regiment, and they were good at something, and there you go.
They was called the Boys of 99. Ragazzi del 99. Or something like that. It could be true, but so could the thing about the flag. No one knows. It is actually. I can give you a round of applause because it is a.
No.
I can. It's a plausible answer. It's part of the canon of answers to this question. But the bottom line is nobody actually knows.
Fair play.
Nobody actually knows. There's another one that it was the first person who stuck a flake in an ice cream. His ice cream shop was number 99 on a road. That's another one. I think somewhere in Scotland. But anyway, you can have a round of applause, Bill, because you've added to the colour of it. There you go. Bless you too. 12:55 is the time. Venki is in Croydon. Venki, question or answer?
Answer, please.
Carry on.
First of all, thank you very much for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Big fan of your show. Looking forward to the book.
Thank you.
The answer is to the WhatsApp question,
yes.
I hope. So WhatsApp is essentially following the model of another app in China called WeChat.
Okay.
And this is because WhatsApp is banned in China. WeChat essentially has a business directory where they have business users, so for example, plumber, clothes shop, tradesmen, doctors, whoever else it is. They come and advertise their sort of wares, quote unquote, on on WeChat, and then consumers essentially subscribe to it, and consumers can get those services provided to them. Now, WhatsApp does something similar in India.
Right.
Yes. They do something similar in India, where essentially banks will have business accounts, and
we've just opened one. Actually, LBC's just opened a WhatsApp account, but I don't know. I don't know that we pay for it. I don't think we pay for it. I'm not sure.
Not sure either. I haven't seen it in the UK, but I have definitely seen it in India.
So it's a work in progress, isn't it?
It is a work in progress. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to increase their consumer base. Well, for obvious reasons.
Data.
And they've exactly that. Yeah. And they've taken it from, essentially the idea has been taken from WeChat, which has got some of the highest ARPU, as they call it in the industry lingo, which is average return per user.
Okay. Oh, that is interesting. Qualifications?
I used to work I used to work with WeChat around sort of 2014, 2015 timeframe.
Oh, that'll do. A big round of applause for Venki, please.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a great answer. Very, very knowledgeable. Thank you. Patrick's in Reading. Patrick, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
It's just to add on the WhatsApp answer you just got. So Facebook at the time bought WhatsApp primarily for everyone's phone numbers.
Of course, the data. So they're making money with it, but not through it.
So you're able to marry your kind of fluid data sets that are on Facebook. So, likes, you dislikes, the products you buy and you talk about, and your political leanings, etc., to your static data set, which is your phone number. And that makes it much more valuable to companies, political parties as well.
Potentially. I forget precisely where the legality is, but most of us have signed up for stuff.
You can't use it. In America, you can.
In America, you can. And I mean, still a huge sort of multi-$100 million fine for data mining as well. Yep. It's still very largely not known how widespread it was here. Luckily, there's a book coming out on November the 2nd that goes into it in quite a lot of detail in the Dominic Cummings chapter.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I know. Round of applause. Qualifications? Qualifications?
I've worked in data for 10 years.
Round of applause for Patrick, please. I'm tempted to give the board game to Mike in Marlow. I just thought that was the most enjoyable. It was the contribution I enjoyed the most, not necessarily for the right reasons, but yes. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player, where you can also rewind live radio. You'll also find all of LBC's shows there to catch up on, as well as the world's biggest podcasts. Rewind live radio on Global Player. Download for free from your app store or head to globalplayer.com. Coming up at 4 on LBC, it's Tom Swarbrick, but now it's time for Sheila Fogarty. 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 It's time for Sheila